5D Mystery School.
So I think they're going to pretend that they're tracking biometric data on the watches or on the phones, but when in fact it actually is under the skin. If you go to NAM.org, they talk about monitoring the user's attention by tracking brain activity and eye movements. How are you tracking brain activity unless you've got something connected to my brain? It's playing God. So here, they're not even covering it up as you go through the video. Implantable microchips, mental and emotional sensors. So now they can assess your mental and emotional states. This should be enough to make everyone say, shut the entire system down. Your body can become dependent on the device for health or functional purposes, such as your heartbeat, or your brain functioning, or your lungs being able to breathe. So you become dependent on the Internet of Things for your body to function. You know, if we start adopting this technology, then others who don't want it could be coerced into adopting the technology. Also, it's an infringement on your body autonomy. You don't say, because now psychopaths and artificial intelligence are going to control what I can and cannot think, what I can and cannot eat, where I can and cannot go, my thoughts, my emotions, my insulin levels, my blood pressure level. Obviously, this is infringement on my body autonomy and sovereignty over my body.
And again, you guys got Gates setting up his smart city, right? So, it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. So again, I mentioned the Internet of Bodies. I ended up weirdly about 4 years ago in an angel investor meeting that I did not know about. It was an Evite I had in my Google alerts, I still have Google alerts. It was like Internet of Things, Smart Cities, and Pay for Success. And it was a meetup at a co-working space in Washington that was connected to Microsoft and the IMF. And it was about all of those things. And the gentleman that ran this company was there, the Smart Internet of Things School. And it turned out it was a box lunch. There were only 12 people. I thought it was a big auditorium of people, and I was there with 3 other people who were, clearly I was not an investor. And I called them out and I said, this is not okay. And this guy, he said, he ran some big network in Richmond, Virginia. And he said that he took his daughter's history class online because she didn't like history. And I said, now they'd know from behavioral biometrics it wasn't her, right? And he just looked at me. But they know what they're doing. They know what they're building. This was 3 or 4 years ago. So they're gonna smart up your kids' school in every aspect, getting to and fro and what it is until they disappear the schools and they do it all to your house. This is the house, this is Casita. This is a model. If you've noticed, I don't know, in Philly, we have all sorts of pop-ups now. Pop up your, things and pop-up parks and they often use these cargo containers, And so these cargo containers are sold, there's a video, it's like mid-century modern luxury, right? Look, you can pull out your bed, you can pull out your TV, you can do, and essentially, but they're like, yeah, here's 60 Internet of things that are embedded in your Casita. And they're selling them as in-law suites. Oh, it's so cool, you can have your mom in the bed. But they said, we're gonna roll these things off like cars because it's all prefab, so we need to keep a very close eye on manufactured housing industry, because how are they gonna build the megacities? It's gonna be printing off-site, trucked, and then installed rapidly. And even in Philadelphia, a lot of the gentrification is happening with prefab housing in part, but it's not to this point. And you can see that is actually from their logo. They stack and pack. When we talk stack and pack, they are literally developing infrastructure to stack and pack those things, because you're not getting out of them. Once they put you in there, you're on the 3rd floor, you think you're going down? No, the QR code is not letting you down very often. You're in the zoo.
The Internet of Bodies, an ecosystem of internet-connected devices that can alter the capabilities of our bodies, or collect personal, intimate data about us so we can learn more about and improve ourselves. There's a small but growing movement of people who are early adopters of radical technologies like self-implanted devices. The popularity of the Internet of Bodies is growing because, in addition to improving our health, these technologies can make us more capable, more efficient, more productive, and make our lives more convenient. The Internet of Bodies is going to revolutionize medical care. There are even devices for babies like smart diapers and smart pacifiers. So the Internet of Bodies might be a part of people's lives starting from before they're even born. Satellite internet is going to bring the internet to remote or rural areas by putting thousands of satellites into low Earth orbit. 5G, by some estimates, is going to be able to support around 1 million devices in the same area. Massive amounts of computing power in combination with machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms, are going to allow us to personalize solutions that support how we live, work, and play. In the near future, imagine that you pop an electronic pill that measures the nutrients and bacteria in your gut. We can also think about how they'll impact us at the community level. Maybe the Internet of Bodies can help us stop the next pandemic. In addition to the contact tracing apps on our phones, one day we could have sensors on our masks, or on public toilets, doorknobs, and elevator buttons, and we might know exactly where a disease has spread. I'd like to take you even farther into the future. It's going to be even more radical. A built-in personal assistant could be implanted right into your brain. Instead of typing up your shopping lists or social media posts on a keyboard, you could have a brain-computer interface that automatically types your words when you simply think about them. We'll be able to connect to and become a part of the internet as we never have before. Thank you.
This to happen, but people need to know that these things, all of these pieces are rolling, right? So how do you get to move? How do you get to move? Well, that's the social credit. That's the geofencing from the satellites. You'll hear a lot of discussion now about mobility solutions. And again, a lot of it is tied to climate, right? Like we can't have our own cars. Now listen, I like to take the bus. I like to ride my bike. I like to do these things, right? Do I want to have my mobility solution limited because Uber took over the public transit system, and now if I don't have a medically compliant QR code, I'm not going to be able to access any of their solutions? No, I don't want that. I want the city that I came to, which is a city with services, even though they were rather inadequate, that are under the control of the people, not private investors. So the MyPass project is really important to know about. I wrote about this last April, and I'm really hoping that the medical freedom, the health choice community understands the breadth. So the medical passporting system, the biometric system is meant for this much larger program to track you as a player in the smart city. That is the reason when people say, why is this happening? Yes, it is about health because ultimately the cell therapies are towards this transhumanist program and they want to control you inside and out, but they need you on blockchain, or if not blockchain, some sort of interoperable database tracking system for the predictive analytics, and they're going to get you there. So Robert Woods Johnson Foundation teamed up with Bloomberg in Austin to put unhoused people on blockchain. Now, ostensibly, it was to put their healthcare records on there, and it did not involve a sensor necessarily. It was a laminated QR code that tied to their biometrics and their health data. Okay, so they call it MyPass. MyPass. Like, it should be very clear, and I will say a lot of the conversations around IBM and the Excelsior Pass have focused a lot on the Hollerith cards, which are important, but the piece that doesn't get surfaced nearly as often is that IBM technology was used to enforce the apartheid system in South Africa. And in many respects, that's the more apt program at the moment, is the PASS system and IBM's connection to the mobility, right? Depending on who you are is how you're connected. I don't want...
So I take a vitamin every morning. What if I could take vitamin authentication?
What?
Vitamin authentication. Look, I have one right here. Well, here, I'll let you hold it. Would you like to hold it?
I'll hold it.
Okay. So this...
You guys see it?
This pill has a small chip inside of it with a switch. It also has what amounts to an inside-out potato battery. When you swallow it, the acids in your stomach serve as the electrolyte, and they power it up, and the switch goes on and off. And it creates an 18-bit ECG-like signal in your body, and essentially your entire body becomes your authentication token. Yes, this is true.
Okay, but...
Okay, so wait. So it's really true. So what this means is that becomes my first superpower. I really want this superpower. It means that my arms are like wires, my hands are like alligator clips. When I touch my phone, my computer, my door, my car, I'm authenticated in. First superpower. Like, I want that.
So we're not shipping that right away.
Yeah, no. We're not shipping that right away. But it sounds like...
This is FDA cleared?
So here's the thing. This is not science fiction. This pill was actually made by a company called Proteus, and they've developed it for medical applications. That pill has been CE stamped and cleared by the FDA. You can take 30 of those per day for the rest of your life.
And then what happens? Does your heart
Nothing.
beat change? Does your...
We can just tell that you've taken the pill, a tattoo that could be used for authentication.
then I think you are fulfilling our expectations.
So the EU is doing the digital vaccines. The Idemia, if you've flown anywhere lately, you'll notice the kiosk was probably an Idemia kiosk. That's a French company. I think it's probably tied to the Rothschilds through France. They're developing augmented identity and digital driver's licenses, so that is coming. The piece at the top is from a blockchain poverty management protocol called Alice SI, and they talk about developing the self-sovereign identity management systems, which allows social organizations to track people. Okay, so we have to understand that the nonprofit institutions, as well as the government support systems, it's all being weaponized. It's all being weaponized. And this will be, the other piece of this, and I will go into this later, is that faith communities are often providers of social services. And so they are being drawn into this too. And they're gonna have to make a really clear choice about serving people and expanding their mission, whether it's on blockchain or not, and whether they're allowing dispossessed people to be bet upon as commodities. And my position is I don't think people of true faith would think that that is an appropriate way to treat a fellow human being as a commodity for investment, but people are going to have to get really clear about that pretty soon.
But can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants, and we measure your brain waves, and I can immediately tell you how the people react, or I can feel how the people react to your answers. Is it imaginable?
Are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. Because in the coming generations, we will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds. Now, how exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data. Now, why is data so important? It's important because we've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. Now, what do you need in order to hack a human being? You need two things. You need a lot of computing power, and you need a lot of data, especially biometric data. But control of data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it. All of life, for 4 billion years, dinosaurs, amoebas, tomatoes, humans, all of life was subject to the laws of natural selection and to the laws of organic biochemistry. But this is now about to change. Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud. These are the new driving forces of evolution. And at the same time, science may enable life, after being confined for 4 billion years to the limited realm of organic compounds, science may enable life to break out into the inorganic.
So again, if you notice, the leitmotif has been very much about hexagons, right? Hivemind, but it's also the most efficient use of space and tiling, which I think is really interesting from a gamification. The Settlers of Catan board game is hexagons, and Uber uses its hexagons to tile the world. So I'll just emphasize that Uber is not a ride-sharing company. Uber is a geofencing company, okay? That's what these companies are. They're not ride-sharing. They're about not letting you on if you're not compliant. It's a geofencing company. Their mobility solutions will take over public transit systems. They will not let you have your own car, and then that's how it's going to go. So again, leveraging data to predict behavior. I just mentioned about the space. They're going to control this stuff from space. There was a Harvard Business Review article early last April that said that they suggested using macro eyes technology, which I believe is an Israeli company, to use satellite imagery to predict routine immunization from space, African children. This was framed as an equity issue, okay? So they're already using satellites to track children from space as an equity issue, right? So that's Harvard Business Review, guys. I mean, this is not a crappy source. This is like they're telling you what they're doing. Who's doing this? So, I would bump into these things early on and not really know it was bad and not really understand what was going on. So our school superintendent, William Haidt, was sitting as an education advisor on the board of Ridge Lane LP Limited Partners, the venture development at the apex of the public and private sector. So just like this is bipartisan, it runs on public-private partnerships. It is a P3, it is a fascist structure. It's a corporate governance structure. And so what they're into, they're the deal makers for these pay for success projects. And they're into real estate, IT, sustainability, and education. Yeah, education, right? And so they've got a whole stable of bipartisan former governors, former elected officials. They've got all sorts of army generals, and they've got, think tank people, and they got a ton of people, I think, from KPMG or Deloitte. Like these guys, they got everybody on there. Ridge is Tom Ridge, our former governor and the first head of Homeland Security, and his sidekick, R. Brad Lane, is doing some sort of neurocognitive fellowship at Stanford, right? Go figure. I don't know what he's doing over there, but it's probably not good. So again, the UN, we know that the UN Sustainable Development Goals are the game. That's the rules of the game. You guys have a presence here. I know it looks like it's just in a shopping center. You might want to keep an eye on it. I don't really know how far that goes, but I think there's stuff that's often connected to the universities. We know about the globalization, the World Economic Forum. This is being tied to the dispossession of people's meaningful life work to robots and algorithms. And that's the next phase. And it is going to be public-private. So that's the impact. Whenever you see impact, that's the game. We're in the game, if you need a heads up. The other piece of this is and you guys are familiar with the pharma industry as in and of itself, beyond the human capital bonds, which I think many people who understand the harm of big pharma haven't yet made the connection, expanded their view to the human capital bonds and the behavioral analytics. But if you understand that big pharma is now moving into digital therapeutics, which is prescription gaming, and also the biotech. So when I went to Salt Lake City in January and I said, hey, Utah, you guys have 1,000 biotech companies in your state. How are they gonna grow? Who's doing this? So
many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
Inside our own heads is the most complex arrangement of matter in the known universe.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans?
COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. If we want to stop this epidemic, we need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We're now seeing mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries, which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition? Now humans are developing even bigger powers than ever before. We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We are acquiring, for instance, the power to re-engineer life. I know that in recent years, we saw populist politicians undermining deliberately the trust that people have in important institutions like universities, like respectable media outlets. These populist politicians told people that, say, scientists are this small elite, disconnected from the real people. I mean, all this story about Jesus rising from the dead and being the Son of God, this is fake news. Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will.
Within the technocracy element, that there's an input-output and a balanced ledger system, which again, blockchain, right? Is that what they're going to use for it? So they're already talking about, this was in 2013, I think, parasitic power harvesting in shoes. And if you don't think like all the high-end shoe manufacturers are into piezoelectric, they're talking about sensors in pavement. Every single little tap you make, they want to harvest all of that, because how are they going to run their virtual universe? They need every scrap of energy they can get to build it and keep it going. The first social impact bond for health has started now out of Sweden. It is done in conjunction with Social Finance Israel. They are connected to an entity that's doing pilots with smart shirts and smart technology, nanotechnology wearables with Stanford. Like they've got new factories in Portugal. Like this is a global thing. Like for any of us to sort of still be also like when we say, let's not think about it in partisan terms. Like I think there's one thing to say that we need to celebrate our local communities and our identities, but it needs to be in solidarity with everyone else, because nobody is an island. You can't stop the Internet of Bodies because it's run from space at this point. So we need to have solidarity with that. But they're developing the tech now. And this someone shared with me this week, which is just devastating. And this was from the Netherlands in 2018. They're harvesting human body heat to run blockchain. And you can see it says speculative capital with Bitcoin next to it. So they had a vest, and there would be this sensor vest. And like, you know, people like, I mean, imagine that out here, right? Like if you get sweaty and like gonna harvest your sweat to power the blockchain. But like these are the things, and like on the one hand, you're like, well, that doesn't seem scalable. And I don't know, I'm not saying I'm the expert in this, but what I'm saying is I'm up for asking the ethical questions. Picture a warehouse of dispossessed, unhoused people with their blockchain laminate card being tucked in at night and plugged into the blockchain. Like it really is the Matrix. It's not that far off of the Matrix. And if we are not willing to have the integrity across the political scenario, because I don't think any of us humans who stand for life would accept that that is a future we want for anyone, right? So heads up, that's coming.
Welcome to today's Council on Foreign Relations virtual meeting with Dr. Henry Kissinger and Dr. Eric Schmidt. You write that, and I'm quoting, whether we consider it a tool, a partner, or a rival, AI will alter our experience as reasoning beings and permanently change our relationship with reality. The result will be a new epoch.
5D Mystery School.